If I were to go back a year from now, November of 2021, and you would have asked me, how is your worship? I would have said, oh, our worship's great. Yeah, we got a really great musician, and he's got an amazing band. And you know what? I think most people would have said that too. However, if you would have dug under the surface, you would have found that about 20 to 30% of our congregation generally showed up late to worship because they just are there for not really worshiping, for other reasons. And then also after worship, most of the band just did a coffee break. They never participated in the service. And maybe at the end they'd all show up if we'd have a close. And a couple of them were actually getting paid to be there. Afterwards, we found out that a lot of people were there just because they liked that worship leader or they liked the songs from that worship leader. And when that worship leader just abruptly left, we had nothing. And we prayed as an elder team and we thought, what do we do?
Being skillful as musicians and working with your talents, and that is honoring to the Lord. But the culture we want to build is one that's not built around the gift in another. We want to build culture where people are in love with Jesus. They want to encounter His presence more than anything. Whether the worship leader is good or whether the worship leader is average, whether the songs are excellent, whether the songs are average, there's a hunger in the people that will take them to that beautiful encounter with His presence. And Peter that's what I want.
So we thought, let's reach out to our 412. We weren't even part of 412 at that point. We were kind of courting and dating. And so we said, well, let's just see if they could help us now. And Andrew said, hey, no problem. And the word started getting out. In the meantime, there was a young man who had a great attitude. And we thought, should we use him or should we just hire people from the outside, which is what we did in the past? And we really felt a check in our spirit about hiring other people. And we thought we wanted to create new culture, really kingdom culture. We were seeing a bit of it.
Peter's heart, even in that transition, was, Murph, I don't want the plastic anymore. I don't want the great production in worship. I want a culture where we can follow where the wind is taking us. I want a culture where our people are worshiping because they love Jesus, not because of the great production or the great worship leader or the great music.
First was from South Africa, Aunt Meek from Oxygen Life.
Going across, I remember our first meeting was during Easter. It was the Easter service, and feeling a little bit overwhelmed and out of my comfort zone a little bit. I know that they built worship, or had up to that point, to a large degree around performance. And although I don't think my worship leading's terrible, I certainly didn't. I knew that it wasn't going to be a performance or being, studio quality, recording quality. So I felt a little bit out of my comfort zone.
God knew that He was the perfect guy to bring to us at the moment to rebuild our team, and that's what He did. He actually built. He didn't build towards Himself. He built away from Himself, and He started discipling the guys, encouraging them. And He was such a safe, meek guy. He lived up to His name.
One of my tasks was just to help grow that team, and so alongside Peter and Mike, we began to look at people in the life of the church and began to bring people together. I'm so thankful for those people. They just love Jesus. They just love Jesus. And what I could sense as I was leading worship was, there was a hunger for God's presence. And the big team wasn't there so much anymore. It was kind of just me and one or two other people. But at the same time, there was a real hunger for Jesus just to come and to be glorified and to be exalted. And it was amazing how God just began to add people. I was there for about 3 months. It went really, really fast. But as I was there, I began to see every single week, I felt like the old was beginning to disappear more, maybe focus on more performance, and then just the rawness of God's presence and His desire for people to come through.
And then he left in July, and we were going to be short a worship leader until the conference, until Mervis came. And so we were praying and we were wondering, should we actually go hire someone? Because we didn't have anybody at that point. And we just really felt, no, the Lord will provide. And lo and behold, Clinton Lawrence showed up.
Yeah, so we had a planned trip to go and see Lawrence's family in the States. And just before we were about to leave, Merv messaged us and he said, hey, there's a church that he's been walking with, and we might know the people. And he said it was Peter. We were like, yeah, we remember Peter, a great guy. And he said that there's an opportunity to go and help them out with worship.
And they just flowed so well, and I learned so much. They were only there 3 weeks, but it felt like they were there for 3 months. They had such an impact on us. And I remember one of the things that Clint told me, he's like, hey, the goal of worship isn't for the worship guy to just wow you. The goal of worship is for the congregation to actually take over worship. And I remember a couple times it did, and I was like, that's what he's talking about.
I think in the beginning when I did kind of laugh out loud in the first meeting when they asked us to go, because I was like, how are we being the ones that are asked to do this of all the people that they could call on? It was just an amazing experience. I think for me, I had an understanding and experience and revelation even of 412 and what it is from a practical experience. I think I knew about it and could tell you about it and appreciated it, but I'd never experienced the massive impact.
We felt like we stepped into this kind of vacuum where, people just wanted to glorify God more and just wanted to see how it was done and demonstrated. So we really walked into open doors and just worshipped alongside people is what it felt like.
And then we had, of course, Mervis come, and everybody loves Mervis here. And he just has such a way to connect you with the intimate worship of God. And it's just simple songs that glorify the Lord.
We had a conference and we had wild people, wild worshippers standing in the front, shouting the name of Jesus. And they had their own people in the congregation playing on stage, It wasn't hirelings, it was sons and daughters in the house. And sure, they're not professional, but the sound that came out of them was beautiful. There's definitely a different sound when the sons and daughters in the house picks up their instruments and play unto the Lord and serve their family with their gifting.
And that's really all, each one of us, that's kind of the common thread. We just said yes to Jesus in different ways. And it was like, I'm underqualified, I can't do this is impossible. But yet, look at me, I'm walking on water, and this is beautiful, this is amazing, and I get to be with Jesus on water. And I remember 2 weeks ago, during our service, one of the elders, Mike Fanning, he leaned over to me, and it was during our worship, God's presence was there, and he's like, isn't this amazing? Isn't it amazing how far we've come in the last 6 months, and that we're making progress, and we're here in God's presence, and even in the worship? And I was like, yeah. And we both started crying because it was just such a beautiful reminder of how faithful God is. And it had mostly to do with, besides God's faithfulness, is just our brothers and sisters from 412 that came, and without getting paid, without doing anything, they led by example, and they just blessed us so much. So it's just, we're going to be forever indebted to those guys.